As we know from the failure of the British Museum to safeguard the health of the Elgin marbles, they whitewashed them. We can't rely on colonial activity to look after the artifacts of history, and we have to face up to our colonial past. But I think what's important when we're looking at colonialism is just how significant Britain was in abolishing slavery, indeed in getting rid of its own colonialism at a time when colonialism was de rigueur. Almost every nation globally with any power has been involved in colonialism. Mr. Putin, for example, can wring his hands and talk about the colonialism of the West, but Mr. Putin is sitting on a history of serfdom. And the serfs were not finally emancipated until, was it 1860 or something? And then I think they paid for their own emancipation, and it was a bit of a mess. I mean, I wouldn't want to have been a serf. The USSR had its own colonial past, which Putin is now reviving with the invasion of Ukraine. So the idea that this sort of sabotage effort of the king's coronation to drag the king into the wider debate of colonialism and of objects in our care, like the Koh-i-Noor diamond and so on. I think this is an inevitable debate. I think so far we're handling it relatively calmly, and that's the way to go. We should look at the past and look at the past carefully. I think it's opportunistic. I think it's designed to be disruptive. And even when we go back and we salute the work of William Wilberforce or Pitt the Younger, even with all the best will in the world, the changes were not seen in his lifetime, for example. And the idea that restorative justice, the return of these objects, even if that were morally appropriate, the idea that that should happen quickly is absurd. I think, morally, having left Europe, we have a far weaker case to present for guarding the artifacts of history. While we were part of a broader European federation, which we didn't need to join. Had we not joined it, we would be in the same position as we were before. Having joined it and then having left, having effected that divorce, I think in many ways we are now duty bound to return some of the treasures that we have paraded because of our marriage to Europe. Had we not got married, we would have kept those treasures, and I don't think the moral case for returning would be so great. I think having had that alliance, particularly with Greece, I think there is very little moral ground for keeping the Elgin marbles. Very little. There's very little artistic ground, and we have to remember that we were responsible for whitewashing those statues. Comments on here have gone on about how the Vatican also has these statues. Well, the Vatican has a hand here or there. That's it. The Vatican has very little of the Acropolis statuary, and we have a great deal. And what we don't have is now at the bottom of the Mediterranean Sea, because Elgin loaded the stuff onto ships which were not seaworthy. As for George IV and his link with the slave trade, yeah, it's quite possible. Has he benefited? Maybe. Have we therefore benefited? Maybe. But I think we have to weigh that against the positives and our role in quitting colonialism. And I think in all cases we need to look for the positives rather than the negatives. There's plenty of opportunity. We can find negatives in anything. I find negatives all the way around the kitchen. We need to search for the positives. We need to promote positivity rather than negativity.